Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I'm looking at the Pods framework. Pods is a WordPress plugin that you use to work with dynamic data. With Pods, you can create custom post types, custom taxonomies, and custom fields. This video is part of a series looking at custom post types and page builders. You see, there are two parts to working with custom post types. The first part is creating them in the WordPress admin, and the second part is showing the custom post type and custom field data on the front end. Pods is a free plugin available in the WordPress plugin directory. If we take a look, we see that it has more than 100,000 active installs. There are 333 5-star reviews, a very good ratio of 5-star reviews to other reviews. And if we take a look in the support forum, we see that the Pods team is actively helping users with their questions. This is the Pods website. If we take a look at the features, we see that you can extend any content type with custom fields, and you can create new content types. And this is what we're going to do in the video. We're going to create a books custom post type, and we're going to create a custom taxonomy called genres. We'll add a couple fields to the books custom post type. If we go to the add-ons page, we see there are quite a few add-ons here. Some of them are included in the core plugin on WordPress.org, and some are additional add-ons. There are a few of the add-ons that are marked as premium add-ons, meaning that you would pay for them. If we look at the donate page, Pods is a project that is supported by its users. You can donate to the Pods project, and some of the premium add-ons, when you purchase them, donate a portion of their sales back to the Pods project. One last thing I wanted to show you on the website before we get into the walkthrough is to look at the documentation area. You can see that there are some menu, table of contents type things. And when you go in, you can see that it's still a work in progress. That's been kind of a weak point of Pods, is the documentation has been out of date or non-existent. But this is a new website, and I think they are trying to address that. So hopefully this will get filled out quickly with some good information that will help users when they're using Pods. I have a testing site here. You can see it just has the Hello World post and the sample page for content. I'm using the free Blocksy theme. And if we take a look at the plugins, I have the Blocksy companion plugin, and then I have WP Reset Pro, which I use to reset the site between testing cycles. So let's get started and install Pods. You install it just like any other WordPress plugin. And when you install it, you get an extra admin menu area here. This is where you add a new content type or extend an existing one. These are the components that are part of core that you can enable or disable. You have the ability with Pods to create templates using HTML and something called Pods Magic Tags. And we'll take a brief look at this later on in the video. And then there's a settings area here where you can clear the Pods cache. You can enable or disable sessions. You have the option to opt in to tracking to let the Pods project track how you're using Pods so they can make Pods better. And then there are some options here for resetting the site. You probably wouldn't use these, but if you do, you would need to read what is kept and what is deleted with each of these options. So let's go and create a new pod. And when you do that, there's a drop down here. You can create a custom post type, you can create a taxonomy, or you can create a custom settings page. And that settings page would be something like a page in the WordPress admin. So we want to create a new custom post type. We're going to call it book for the single label, and the plural label is books. And these labels are just used in the back end here in the admin. There's a little advanced reveal option, and you can see that it automatically gave the pod the name. And this is the name that will be used in the database. And as we go through the process of creating the pod, we'll see there are many options. And I believe that you can change your mind on most of them, especially early on before you add a lot of content. But you don't want to change the name because this is the name in the database. So if you add a lot of content and then change the name, you might lose the link between the data that you've saved and the pod. So I'd leave this alone. And now here's an option to enable the REST API, and that's checked by default. Okay, so one thing I noticed as I was testing and preparing to make the video is that there are several places where you can enable the REST API. So sure, we want that enabled, and we're going to click Next Step. Now we come to an interface here where there are a number of tabs. The first one is where we add custom fields to our custom post type. And by default, it's named our field group, our group of fields, More Fields, which is not really a very helpful name, I think. So let's change that, and we'll call it Book Fields, and we'll call it Book Fields here. And then there's an advanced tab, and these are some visibility restrictions that you can do by user role and whatnot, which is an advanced feature. So we can just ignore this for now, but it's good to know it's there if later on you might need it. Okay, so I'm going to save the group, and now this is called Book Fields. All right, so let's create a field. We'll add the first one, and this will be called Author's Website. And you see the label is just what shows on the interface. That can be whatever you want, but the name, this is what's going to be in the database. You can add a description if you want. You can make it required if you want. And then there are quite a few field types here that Pod supports. So that's nice that it supports a lot of field types. You know, plain text, website, phone, email, password, paragraph, code, date, time, number, currency, relationship, Boolean, yes, no, color picker. And then these are UI elements for laying out your fields in the admin. So we want this to be website. So that's a link. We don't need it to be required. Now, note that when we chose the field type, this changed here to show us some options for the field related to that specific field type. So there's format. There's the option to output the URL as a link. So that means it would come being output as an anchor tag. When I was going through and looking at how I was going to present this information, what I started to notice is that there are a large number of options here. I realized in making the video, I had the danger of going one by one through each of these checkboxes. And basically, you'd have a half hour of going through checkbox options, which isn't very exciting. Anyway, here you can give it a class. You can have a default, and there are visibility restrictions, again, by user role. Okay, and you can hide the field in the UI and whatnot. Okay, so these are kind of advanced options that you wouldn't need. And now here's another REST API option. Remember when we started, there was a REST API option. And now here's one also. And you can make the field readable or writable. If it's a relationship field, then there would be some more options showing here. You have the option to set these REST API options on a field by field basis, but later on there'll be an option to set them for the whole custom post type rather than on a field by field basis. So we'll just ignore this for now, and we're going to save, and there's our first field, Author's Website. Let's add one more field, and this one will be Author's Photo, and this one will be a file, image, or video because we want to use an image file here. We don't need to make it required. And if we look at the options here, you can allow single file, multiple files. You have options of which tab is going to be the default when you upload, whether it's going to be upload file as the default tab in the media library or to browse the media library, whether or not the title is going to be editable, whether to show the edit link, whether to show a download link. You can restrict the file types. And you have more options here. These are the text options, like on the button. So I can do add image, attach add image. And then here's an option to output the results as a WordPress gallery. Okay, so there are lots of options here. Advanced, these are the same as we had before. And then we also have the REST API options, which we're going to take care of later. Okay, so here's our fields. That's good. Now we go to labels, and these are the labels that show up over here when you add a new one and everything. As you can see, there's a very long list, and we're just going to go with the defaults. Then there's an admin UI set of options, post type description, show an admin UI, and it's checked, and you see here it is. Show admin menu in the dashboard. Whether to show the post type in the admin menu. Let's check that. So here we've already made a decision to show it in the admin UI, and it's showing here. But now there's something show admin menu in dashboard. So I'm not sure the full extent of the differences between these two, but we do get some more options. There's parent menu ID. And this would allow us to tuck it up under like the settings menu or something. There's the menu name. Well, we already have it called books, so we don't need that. There's menu position, So I guess we could look at some documentation and see what that is, but what happens if we just don't do anything? Menu icon, and there's a link here to dash icon, so let's open that in another tab. And these are icons available in the WordPress admin. And we'll just scroll down here. Here's a book icon, so we'll go with that. Called dash icons book. We'll copy that name and we'll paste it here. Show a navigation menu, sure. Show an admin bar, new menu. Yes, that's when you're here up there. Okay. We go to connections. This is where we connect it up with the custom taxonomy. We haven't created one yet, so we'll make that connection in a few minutes. Then here are a lot of advanced options. So as I was saying, there are really a lot of options here. So yes, we want it public. We want it publicly queryable. We don't want to exclude it from search. User capability, we'll have it be like posts. I think pages are hierarchical and posts aren't. You can add extra. Do you want an archive page? Yes. You can override the slug. You have an option for it to be hierarchical. You can do rewrite, which is allow to use pretty permalinks, which we want. Which wouldn't that happen automatically if we set the permalinks to that option? You can have a custom rewrite slug. Rewrite with front, rewrite the feed, rewrite pages, query variable, have it be exportable, sure. The default status, I think it would just be like posts, like we selected. So, I guess the default would start out as draft. Then these are features of WordPress post types. So it has the title, the content editor, we'll have author. So I think you'd want author if you had multiple authors on the site, allow you to switch author. We have featured image, excerpt. This is for manual excerpts, a lot of themes, and I think WordPress itself will default and create an excerpt from a certain amount of the content if you don't choose this. But you can do this as an override. You can have comments, revisions, page attributes, post formats, additional supports, maximum revisions. And this allows posts to be deleted if the author is deleted. Remember we talked about pod templates. So if you want to create a template for this pod, then you would check that here and you will have that option, and we'll look at that a little bit. And now here's the third REST API option. Okay, remember we had one when we started out? Then we had REST API options for the fields, and now we have a third one here. Now here you can change the base URL link to the REST API fields, and you can show all fields read-only, and you can allow fields to be updated. So I think checking these here does it for all of the fields of the post type. So we shouldn't have to go and check those REST API options on a field by field basis. Okay, so we save. Now here's our book. We see it still showing the tag icon. Let's do a refresh, and there's the book icon. All right, now let's make one more pod, and this one will be the custom taxonomy. We'll call it genre, genres, genre, and REST API, yes. See, now this looks kind of like it's going to be a wizard, but actually it's just tabs with options. We'll need to add custom fields to the taxonomy. We'll just go with the WordPress defaults, default labels. Here we are in the admin, show admin menu in the dashboard, sure. Menu name, genres, menu location, default, yes, add it to the associated post type. Show it in navigation menus, sure. Allow tag clouds, sure. Allow it in the quick bulk edit panel, we'll say yes. And now what this is, let's just look here real quick. This is where we're going to have it show the taxonomy like in the column here. And then this quick edit, we're going to allow them to change that genre here just like you can with posts. And then show taxonomy, column, and post types. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Okay. Next, connections. Okay, these are the post types, and we want it to be associated with books. Advanced options. We guess default, user capability. Remember the order. We don't think we need to do that. The option, you can add a custom function here where you can do some programming to override WordPress defaults. Default menu name, default term slug, default term description. Again, we can create templates here. And again, we have REST API option. So we save this. If we go look here, we don't see our genres yet. Let's refresh. And here are our genre categories. Okay, so we've now created custom post type called books. We've added some custom fields to it, and we've created a custom taxonomy. Let's go look in the admin here in the edit screen. Okay, here's our regular title and content editor. Over here is our place for our custom taxonomies, featured image, discussion, and here's the place for our custom fields. Okay, so this has, I think, everything that we're expecting. So let's add a book record. Okay, our first book will be called The Sea Queen, and we'll put in some dummy text for the content. For genre, we will add one called Historical Fiction. And now we'll add the featured image, and I've uploaded it already. And now let's add our custom fields. We'll paste in the link to the author's website, and we'll pick from the media library the author's photo. This is what it looks like now in the admin. We hit publish, and here's our book record, here's our genre. And if we go and look at the book record on the front end, we see that the featured image is huge. Probably the theme is expecting a landscape orientation. Here we have our title, the author, the date. Here's our custom taxonomy, and here's our content. But by default, WordPress doesn't show the custom fields on the front end. Okay, now let me pause the video and I'll create some more book records so you don't have to kind of watch through that long process. Okay, let's go look at the book records that I've created now. You see, I've created quite a few of them. If we go to the front end, we can look now and see what the default archive for books looks like from the Bloxy theme. Okay, so notice how the featured image, again, it's expecting kind of the landscape. So we need some theming here, and as we mentioned, we're going to need theming here to handle the image and to show our custom fields. So that will be the next step. There are actually quite a few options for displaying pods data on the front end. I've created a list here. We're going to actually look at the pods templates, not as a full walkthrough, but just quickly so that you can get an idea of what's involved. Most of the pods users I've interacted with have used Beaver Builder and Beaver Themer, so that's what I'm going to do as a walkthrough. Bricks Builder is a new page builder, and it has support for pods. So that's an option if you're using Bricks. Brizy Pro has been around for a while, and it has support for pods. Elementor, there are actually two options when using Elementor. You can use Elementor Pro, which has support for pods in its theme builder, or you can use dynamic content for Elementor from the dynamic.000 website, and the dynamic plugin also has support for pods in its template builder option. With Gutenberg, we're soon going to have the option for full site editing. And pods comes with a couple of Gutenberg blocks. So I think when full site editing is available, then that will be an option also. And finally, there are some premium add-ons that are created by one of the pod's developers, and you can purchase access to those on his website, and he gives a percentage of the sales back to the pod's project. So that's the list of options there. Let's go and take a quick look at the pods template and then do a more detailed walkthrough with Beaver Builder and Beaver Themer. Okay, so let's go try out the pods template option. Let's go and edit our books pod. And remember, there's this tab where you can enable it. And so there are two steps to this. First, you need to enable it here. And when you do that, you have some things you have to do. You have to give your template a name for the single and the list or archive template, and make some selections here. So I'm going to call it book single, and you have the option, is a template going to come in before the content, after the content, or replace the content? Okay, so I want to replace the content. And then do you want to use the WordPress filter the content or use a custom hook? I'm going to do the default WordPress way. And for the book archive, I'm going to call it book archive. And do the same thing. So I want to replace the content, and I want to use the basic WordPress filter. There's some option here to execute the templates outside of the regular WordPress loop. As an advanced option, I'm going to ignore that. Let's save. Now, the names you gave them, book single and book archive in this instance, it's important to remember those because you have to use them when you go to the second step. Let's go to this menu item here for pods template. We'll do add new and add the template name. So book single, this is where you have to match that up. And so I don't want to restrict to admin only. I don't want to add any special capability options or any special message options. So I'm going to leave those as default. And over here, you pick which pod to use as a reference. And when you do that, you get a list here of all of the custom field and WordPress token options. So you see there's a nice long list here, a lot of variables that you can use in creating your templates. So that's very nice. Then you come over to this editor here, and I think this has some, basic editing syntax or some check or something here. But this editor is actually a little bit limited. you can make it bigger here. But I've seen other tools with an HTML editor. They're pretty robust. But anyway, the templates that you create here, this is a feature or an option for people who are familiar and comfortable with HTML and with CSS, because that's what you're going to need to create these templates. So this is basically the code option, and it could take a long time to actually type all this out. So what I did was I prepared it ahead of time. I've got two parts here. This top part is some style option. Basically I'm creating kind of a grid here for two columns, and I've given some class names that I prefaced with my initials. And then below 769 pixels, basically here's the HTML. So I have a div with two divs inside of it. This one is for the featured image. And I have an empty image tag, two empty image tags. And then this div here is for kind of the right column. And this is where we put the post content. So I'm going to put my cursor here between the quotes for the image source option. And you notice the first things here are for post thumbnail URL. For the featured image, I want to use the URL here for the source of the image field. And I double click there, nothing happens. It's nice to have the list, but it's just a static list. So I copy this. The syntax for adding it, this magic tag syntax, you do a curly brace, the @, and then paste in that variable name and then a closing curly brace. Then for the second image source, I want to have the author's image, the author's photo. So I suppose I'll try this one and again do the curly brace, @ curly brace. Okay, and then over here in the H1 tag, I want to have the post title, which is here. Gonna do the same thing. Curly brace, @. Now this time, see when I added the @, we get a pop-up here. So let's go to post title. So that's nice when it works there. Put in the closing curly brace. Then below that, let's just put in the post content. Okay, and I'm gonna publish that. And let's go to the front, we'll go to the archive and pick one of these. Okay, and so that's what we have. We have our featured image and the author's photo. So that worked well. We have the post title and the post content. So you see you could do more with this. You could style it more. You could add the post meta in here and button maybe to go to the author's website. But I think you get the idea of what's involved. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is that this markup is very minimal markup. And if you look at what your theme typically outputs, it's much richer. And some of that markup that the theme outputs is for the sake of SEO. So you need to pay attention to that. I have another video tutorial on old school editing a template, a PHP template, and you might be able to get some ideas from that would help if you want to go this route. So that's the idea with the pod template. What I'm going to do now is go back to my pod and edit it. Let's disable this auto template and save. And now I'm going to pause the video and install the plugins for using Beaver Builder so that we can take a look at the process using those tools. Okay, now to have a quick Beaver Builder walkthrough to show how to create a template using Beaver Builder, Beaver Themer, and pods. You're going to need a premium version of Beaver Builder for working with dynamic data. And you're also going to need the add-on, the Beaver Themer add-on. And then the Pods team created a free Beaver Themer add-on, which is available in the WordPress plugin directory. If we look here, you can see I've installed these. I have the Beaver Builder, Beaver Themer and the Pods Beaver Themer add-on. Those are all installed and activated. When you have Beaver Themer activated, you have this option for Themer layouts. So I'm going to go here and add a new one. We'll call it Book Single. And this is going to be, you have these options here we're going to do for a singular. And then you give it a rule to say what content here, and it's going to be for books. So I'm going to publish that. And we'll go into Beaver Builder. And you create your Themer layouts right inside of Beaver Builder. So what I'm going to do to get our 2-column layout is I'm just going to add a row with 2 columns here. And then I'm going to move this into there. And we will have it as an H1. That's good. And the style, we'll want it to be left aligned. And we'll make this a little bit smaller. And then we'll do the same thing with the post meta. We'll just drop that in. And we'll align that to the left. Okay, and then can delete that out. Here now we will add the author's photo. So you see this is easily drag and drop. You just have these different modules and you choose the one you need. So I'm adding the photo. First I'm going to go and use the dynamic data option here to pick the featured image and the size. And then under style I'm going to say let's make it 180 pixels wide and we'll center align it. Okay, and now I'm just going to drag this one up. Okay, so you can see we're going very quickly here. Whoops, want this center aligned. Alright, and now I'm going to add another image. We'll get the author's photo and we'll just put that in there. Again, we're going to go for the dynamic data option. Post featured image, no. A post custom field, that you might think that's it, but actually down here we have pods fields, and that's what we want now, is to use a pods field. And here it is, author's photo, so it's found that. And we'll save that. So that all looks good. And here we have the tag for genre here. And I think this is just called genres. We might be able just to change this here. Let's see if that will do it. Nope. So let's add our own here. Go add a text element. Let's put it under the author's photo. You see here's the dynamic data option there. We'll have post term list. So let's find our genres. Good. Looks like we need to center that. I don't really want the author's photo in there. I mean, just get rid of some of these extra items and we'll save that. Okay, and you see how easy that was. And now let's go and let's do one more Themer layout. This will be the book archive. This will be book archive, and we'll add another one for the genre archive. So let's publish that, and we'll edit this then with Beaver Builder. That doesn't look so great, and I don't need this archive title, so we'll get rid of that. Let's see if we can edit here our posts widget. It's a list, that's okay. And I'm okay with it with the image on the left. Let's see if we can change the image size here. Okay, so it's Go a little bit smaller. Okay, and we'll save that. And here's our archive. Okay. That's a quick example of using Beaver Themer with pods. We've done kind of a walkthrough, different options. Now for some discussion and conclusions. So let's talk about some cons and some pros. The first thing that stood out to me was that there are a ton of options. You saw when we walked through the process of creating the custom post type, custom fields, that there are more options available than with Toolset or with Metabox or with Advanced Custom Field Pro. So I was a little bit surprised because I imagined that pods would be beginner friendly. And I think so many options might be bewildering. Seemed like many of those options, the extra options, were maybe more advanced user developer focused. So perhaps there's still work that could be done on the user interface, maybe a real wizard to actually walk a new user through the process. There are also a few things like pointed out that there were 3 places to set REST API settings. So that kind of thing could be confusing for people and raise questions. Now, the pods templates, that's a cool idea for people who are comfortable working with code. But that interface, if it's to be taken seriously, could be improved. For example, Metabox Views is something that's kind of similar. And that interface, it has 3 tabs, one for a code editor, one for CSS, and another tab for JavaScript. And the code editor is much more advanced and has more features. The pods website and the documentation still needs more work. And pods development has been slow, and pods still lacks some catch-up features such as repeater fields. But hopefully that will improve. So let's talk about the pluses. First of all, pod support is good. The team is actively helping users in the WordPress plugin directory and on the Slack channel. Pods is user supported, the development. It feels like a community tool. The users that I've interacted with online are very friendly and helpful. So I think there's really something there in relation to the pods community. As I showed, there are a good number of third-party support options for working with and displaying pods data. So that's good. Pods offers a couple of blocks for using dynamic data for showing your custom fields in the Gutenberg editor. So I'm curious to see how well that's going to work when full site editing comes to WordPress. It would be pretty cool if it were sufficient to create your theme templates in Gutenberg using the full site editor. Pods is free, and one of the things about WordPress that I've always hoped and always looked for a free option for users. Over the years, I've come in contact and helped a lot of users who are maybe working for nonprofits, or they're putting up their own website. Maybe they're a teacher or a museum or a user providing historical information, and they don't have a big budget. And so another big plus of pods, it's a free option for WordPress. You don't have to spend money to be able to create custom post types and custom fields. So there's a saying that the proof is in the pudding. And once you find your way around pods, it works well. I didn't run into any bugs or glitches. Everything worked as I expected. So I think that pods is solid, and if the development and the work on the website and documentation continues, then I think that pods would be a good choice for site builders. That's my walkthrough and review of pods. There's a text summary of the video available on the WebTNG website. It has some of the code snippets and other resources. There are other articles and reviews available on the WebTNG website. I hope you found the video useful. Thank you for watching.